Sounds like it.
All right, Jeff. I'm Jeff. Nice to meet you in person.
Kim, are you set?
Yes.
All right. Dan?
All set.
All right. If I had a gavel, I'd bang it. Good evening, everybody. This is the Board of Adjustment meeting for the city of Newcastle on Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. It is 6:30 p.m. We are meeting in the community room at the Newcastle Police Department. I'm Mayor Michael J. Quaranta, and I will be the chair of our proceedings tonight. An application has been filed by Robert Penza. Bob, did I say that correct? Correct. 208 North Heron Circle, Newcastle, Delaware, 19720. He's the applicant and owner for a property located at 208 North Heron Circle, Newcastle, Delaware, 19720. Tax parcel number 21-016.00-011, zone residential R3. Seeking a variance from the required 25-foot minimum rear setback and the 20-foot front setback in the schedule of district regulations of chapter 230 of the zoning code, so as to permit construction of a rear second-story deck 15 foot by 12 foot, 5 foot 8 inches into the 25-foot rear building setback, and to allow the garage to encroach 9/10 of a foot into the 20-foot front setback. That's all one sentence, Kim. My high school grammar teacher would have scolded us. For purposes, Kathy, are you hearing us okay?
I hear you okay.
Loud and clear? Okay, good. Because in town hall, folks, we have microphones, so I just want to make sure we're being picked up. We are being recorded. For purpose of considering this application, the Board of Adjustment will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 8th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. at the community room in the Newcastle Police Department located at 1 Municipal Boulevard, Newcastle, Delaware, 19720. This was posted on May 20th, 2022 in a couple different public newspapers and other sites like websites and things like that.
And can Mr. Bergstrom confirm the property's been posted? Yes, I can. Thank you.
Very good. So the way we will proceed, we have some new members tonight, Bob. So the way we'll proceed is I will ask the city solicitor to swear you in. This is a hearing, and we'll go through your presentation. There will be an opportunity for Mr. Rogers, who's the city planner, Mr. Bergstrom, the city building official, Mr. Lasko, the city solicitor, members of the board to ask any questions, ask the staff any questions that they may have, so we can gather information about your application. We'll then at some point close out the hearing and then go into discussion with just the board.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Penza is a member of the Delaware Bar and as an officer of the court doesn't need to be sworn in. Whatever he says, you can take as a statement of the oath.
Lest he gets disbarred.
Lest he gets disbarred,
He's not
exactly
going to
right.
go that far over that. All right, good enough. Thank you for that. I did not know that. All right, Bob. So without further ado then, Mr. Penza, floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, board members and council for the opportunity to appear before you today for my application. Since the time I filed the application, for this property, which by the way is in a deed restricted community, and as part of those deed restrictions, for construction, a proposed construction such as a deck would require architectural review and approval by the homeowners association, of the development. And Riverbend is held by a bank for a number of years, not really in a development posture until more recently. There now is a developer in place. There now is a functioning external homeowners association. And construction has begun, with the developer. So as such, because of that requirement, I also about the same time submitted an application with the Architectural Review Committee, gave them the same plans that I submitted along with this application. Let them know that I had these proceedings, including giving them the notice that there's a public hearing tonight on the application. And yesterday I received approval without conditions from the Architectural Review Committee for the HOA. So if I can supplement the record and provide you with their written approval.
Not a problem.
All right.
I do have one question though, before you proceed. I know that you shared that you were the past HOA president. Do you currently have a role with the HOA?
No, I resigned from that volunteer position, and
I
but
understand.
I served a little bit longer than I expected.
But I asked for the purpose of obviously, one, being transparent, two, if there were any conflict with submitting an application to a board you chaired.
Correct.
So that's not the case.
That's correct. Yes, I resigned once the new developer purchased the property, from the bank, and they were putting in this external, company, which is Statewide Property Management it's a separate corporation. I have no role, whatsoever.
Depends if you'd like to hand me that letter, I'll make certain it's part of the record.
Hey, there's multiple.
Oh, good.
I don't know if you need more than one. The other thing I'll mention is, since it was also, this hearing was posted, on our property and advertised. I did send an email this morning to my two next door neighbors, to let them know that, and I gave them a copy of the hearing tonight, told them, that we're proposing to build a deck, and I wanted to see, if they had any questions, or if they could let me know if they had no objection, because I'd like to, report that, to the panel, if they didn't come themselves. And I did get a reply, from my next door neighbor. So I'm in 208, I guess she's 206. Walton, Bonnie and Clay, who live next to us. And she emailed reply back. Bob and Beth, congratulations. Clay and I have no objection to your request. So if I can also supplement the
Yes,
record.
that would be
with her
helpful.
reply.
Yep.
Forward it to you. Multiple copies of that as well. Another thing that may be useful is in the survey in my application, there are really the two issues, which are the two, which is the rear setback that I would be seeking to encroach at about 5.8 feet. And in the way the home was constructed, the garage encroaches by 0.9 feet, but those are the two things that are subject to this application. But also, my side property against my adjacent, that's adjacent to my next door neighbor, encroaches by 0.3 feet, which is noticed on the survey. That encroachment into my neighbor's property line, I do have a recorded easement agreement, with the previous owner, which was the same developer I bought the property from, back in 2013. So the point, I just wanted you to be aware that the 0.3 encroachment on the side lot that's noted on the survey has been resolved with an easement agreement that's recorded. Okay. So that there's consent for that. That's perpetual easement.
Is Mr. Bertram aware of that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can supplement the record with this as well if you want.
Bob, if you want to pause for 1 second, it occurred to me that it probably would have been wise guys to call the roll. So,
I'll take care of that then.
yeah, so,
And we have some new members here, so I don't necessarily have all their names down. Ms. McClellan.
McClellan.
McClellan,
McClellan.
take President.
Present.
Mr. Whited. Present. Mayor Corona.
Here.
And Mr.
Zor.
Zor, thank you.
Present.
sorry about that.
Also present, Jeff Bergstrom, building official, and Dan Lasco, city solicitor, and Chris Rogers, city planner.
Carry on.
Okay, and then last thing I think I want to add as a supplement that I thought would be useful, helpful for this application. The additional photos I took, maybe it's easier if I just pass them and describe them. to you. I'm not sure if I have enough copies for everybody.
We can share. We can share. If you two will share, I'll share with Steve.
There might be enough. Okay. here we go. Sorry about that. So I had photos attached to my application, and I thought it would be helpful. First, to give you a little bit better view of the backyard, which I realized you couldn't see. So if I'm going to be encroaching into the backyard, what would that mean to people behind me? So photo 6 is showing, what's behind me is really wetlands. There's no property there. There's never going to be, any property there that would be impacted behind me. And this is a view of where you can see my neighbor. If you're facing my house, my neighbor to the right, you can see a bit of their deck is sticking out. So my next door neighbor already has a deck off the back of their house. And the back of our properties are about at the same spot. So they already have the deck erected there. And this kind of weird looking structure that you're looking at, was like a 10-foot by 10-foot on an outdoor patio that had a canvas canopy, but the wind ripped it because of the wind from the river. So we took the canopy off, and then we said, you know what, why don't we just try and build a deck if we can, and we'll get rid of that and we'll have the deck instead, hopefully. And so then photo 7 is a little better view of more direct view of our backyard, to show that this deck isn't going to impact anyone behind us. And then photo 8, if you're facing my house, my neighbor to the left, just recently, so after I submitted this application, they just put these pavers down that goes all the way back to their property line. And I think it came out lovely. I think they, the contractor they use, he seems to have done a good job. And I understand from talking to them, they're going to put on the pillars, they're going to put lanterns, so they have lighting. And so they've just done, something much further and deeper into the back of their property than I'm planning on going. And then the last photo I wanted to point out to you is photo 9. The builder is putting homes up, so he's got about 4 homes up, already, and he's attaching decks to the rear of all his properties. So this happened after he'd already done this. From the time I did the application till now, that's why this current photo. So this is essentially what I'm looking to do in the back of our property, except we wouldn't include stairs. We were just planning on, having it at the second floor so that there's a master bedroom slider that will be able to access the deck I'm proposing, and there's a door off the kitchen So those were the new things I wanted to add to the record. And then in the application itself, for both of these variances, I tried to address what I think are the strict check, factors, for your consideration. And so on the first application for the second story deck, I tried to describe the special circumstances, which exist. And this is where my 25-foot rear setback happens to go right up against the back of our house, or at least 0.2 inches. Before it gets to the back of my house. So to put up an economically feasible deck, I'd have to, encroach a bit into that 25-foot setback. I guess that 5.8 feet would be slightly more than 20%. But I say I don't think this has any impact, on the neighboring properties. I tried to illustrate through the letters and with the response I got from the neighbor. And then number two, that a literal interpretation would deprive the applicant's rights commonly enjoyed by other properties. So I'm showing you that the builder is putting decks up on all the other properties. And so we just want the same. And again, the HOA has no problem with it and has approved it. And three, special conditions or circumstances that do not result in the actions of the owner or the applicant. So these are structural issues that we can build a house. We bought the house, after it was constructed. It was a model home in the community that the developer was selling, and so we bought it, as is. So where the house is situated and the encroachments that ended up, we had nothing to do with the construction. Already the completed one when we bought it. And number four, granting the variance will not confer upon us any special privilege that's been denied to other structures in the same zoning district. So I don't believe anyone in my development, has sought the variance or building permit that they were denied, that I'm now seeking special consideration on, not to my knowledge. So those are where I think I've tried to address the four factors for the encroachment to construct the deck. And then the 9-foot encroachment, 0.9 foot encroachment, so that's less than a foot. There's actually a picture 5 that I attached to my application. Kind of give you a better view as to what that is. So that's at the end of my driveway, looking at almost at the front of my house, but that's what you see there is the garage. And where the sun is hitting the side of the garage, that's
This,
yeah,
that's a garage, but is this yours?
that's mine, correct.
Is that your garage or is that your home?
Well, that's the garage that's attached to my home.
Correct. That's what I thought. This is a neighbor's garage, right?
Correct.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Correct. So yeah, so on the far left of the picture, the neighbor has the same sort of configuration of his house, where the garage, juts off at that 90-degree angle. And my house is pointing to the right of that photo 5. And so the 0.9 foot encroachment by the surveyor, is that wall on the right of the garage.
Got it.
And that's just the way the builder built the house.
So the distance from that wall to the street should have been
20 feet
20 feet.
to the property line,
Okay, right.
to the property line. And I believe that their survey shows it.
When was that discovered? When did you discover that?
Well, I would have discovered that, the survey itself, I would have obtained it right before I went to closing, right, on the property. Because the survey is dated July 12, 2013.
Right.
And we went to closing in July. So we've been there since July. And the survey pointed out the two encroachments, the one we're talking about now, the 0.9 feet, were able to take care of the 0.3 foot encroachment of the neighboring property with the easement, recorded easement that I showed you.
Got it.
We didn't do anything about the 0.9 foot that encroaches into the, that's.
One could have been an issue with a neighbor, the other is just a issue with the city.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and so I think this is, so, so that had to be addressed with the city, you know, either by the previous owner, you know, or us. And, so I'm trying to address it now along with this application.
Okay.
Because apparently he did, and I thought he was going to.
Got it.
So, and my choice would have been not to close.
Understand.
So we'd already committed to move and so I didn't want to hold up, you know, not.
So you're taking this opportunity to, one, address the deck issue, and two, clean up another issue that could have been maybe done earlier, but now we're here, so. got it.
Right.
Okay.
Right, but, you know, along the same factors, that's not I don't think that's a quick check factors. That encroachment is not something of our doing either. We didn't build a home. You know, and it really doesn't impact anything. That's not anything impacts the neighbors. And I think only a surveyor would even know, you know, that encroaches by 9 feet.
Anything else?
So, no, I think that, you know, that covers everything.
Okay.
That I wanted to present.
Great.
Happy to answer any questions.
Yep, let me ask, I do have a couple questions, and then we'll kind of go from this direction to this direction and give members an opportunity to ask you questions. So I already asked you to clarify about your role of the homeowners association. Thank you for clearing that up. Thank you for reaching out to one neighbor. Do you have anybody on the other side of you, and did they have any commentary? I couldn't remember.
Right, I emailed them both.
Right.
In the same email. For one, she replied.
Haven't heard from the
I
other.
didn't hear from the other one. I only emailed them.
Got it. Okay. All right. I may ask, I'm gonna focus on the deck for the time being, and I'm gonna address this to Mr. Rogers and also Mr. Bertram. When is it ever okay to build in wetlands? The answer, never.
The answer would be you can build in wetlands under certain conditions, usually with a permit issued by the Corps of Engineers or the state.
And this particular wetland put Mr. Fano in prison for it.
Understand. So is the question that I have for you both, Mr. Bergstrom first, Mr. Rogers second. There are defined wetlands behind the property, correct? Do we anticipate there ever being building back there? No.
I would say no, given the nature of the wetlands and the extent of the wetlands.
Very good.
Mayor, I'd point out that the survey reflects private open space to the rear of the property. That's not going to be built.
That's just put record. Thank you. Mr. Penza, the size of the deck you're proposing, what is the scale and size, and then maybe just on the visual, of the decks that are being added to the new construction? Are they somewhat similar? Maybe, if you don't know, maybe Mr. Bergstrom knows. Have any idea? Jeffrey, do you know?
Penz's deck is rather modest. Some of the other decks in the next 200 homes will be much larger.
Are the ones that are in these pictures similar in size, or?
Much larger.
What is does our code speak to the size?
You could fill your entire lot with a deck, but you're required to keep the rear yard free below 2 feet.
Okay,
I mean, you can build a patio or a very low deck up to 2 feet tall and then have to apply by the rear setback.
so it's your view that they're not doing anything that is out of scale with their property, other properties that are going to be built in the area.
We might notice that this lot's particular configuration is a little steep than many other lots in subdivision, so the nature of the lot itself is demanding. The existing house is filled up the space between the required front yard setback and the required rear yard setback. So, since to have a rear deck, it's going to take a variance.
Understand? Depends on, was there a deck there before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of my photos may show that there's a board. Yeah, so if you look at photo number 1,
Your photos or?
yeah, my photos.
Okay.
Photo number 1,
Yeah.
that was with the application, not the supplemental one.
Yep.
attached.
Right. I saw the,
Yeah,
yeah,
so photo number 1.
Right.
That's the way we got it, and that board that goes across, it's actually a sliding glass door
okay.
off of a master bedroom.
I see. Okay.
So, and then there's another board that goes across that door, which comes off of the kitchen.
Right. Right.
So it's really not very functional.
Right.
The way that is,
Right.
not very safe either.
Right. So all that will go away, and
Hopefully.
you would have a deck that would somehow provide you with a little step down, or it would be flush to this and would extend out. Okay,
That's right. So where the sliding glass door is, that wall's about 15 feet, so that'd be the width of the deck.
got it.
The deck wouldn't stand outside of the wall of the house. It's already 0.3 feet encroaching on our neighbors.
Right.
We wouldn't do that again.
So it's up to the gutter, maybe,
Yeah,
Okay.
or
approximately.
approximately.
Okay.
And then there's only about 6 feet that comes out where the kitchen door is.
That's this dimension here.
Right, so
Okay.
that's where I want to go 12, that's where I want to go 12 feet.
Got it.
So that would take me the 5.8 feet into the rear setback.
Got it.
So about half of it, would be contained all within there, and then the rest would come out a bit. Not much further out than where, that patio is that's set up. So that dimensions of that are 10 feet by 10 feet.
Got it. Okay.
That gives you kind of a visual.
Appreciate that. Mr. Bertram, do you have any comments on this?
No, it's just cleaning up one of the messes that occurred with this, sloppy surveying.
Mr. Rogers, do you have any comments on this?
No. I will have a recommendation and I can give it to you whenever is appropriate.
Against the okay. Ms. McClellan?
I know you sort of touched on with the closing, did you try and rectify it? I understand we had an encroachment 3 days before our closing, and it was like, the most stressful thing ever. But we ended up recouping some money from the seller because it was not clear to us. Were you able to recoup anything, or you're like, I'm just gonna close and then I gotta deal with it when I gotta deal with it?
For the front
The front,
setback,
yeah.
so
Mhm.
of 9 feet, the developer was Joe Capano, and he said he would take care of it.
Okay.
And he actually put that in writing, that he
Okay.
would take care of it at his expense.
Mhm.
There's no record
Okay.
of him taking care of
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
So, I checked with the city to see if he was
Mhm.
taking care of it. But granted, I didn't check right away.
Mhm.
Um,
So you're doing it now, just sort of dovetail into this process,
Right.
just to kind of get it all cleared up.
Right, trying to get the most for my $800.
There you go.
As far, and I think you also said you're not gonna put steps on the deck, no consideration of that. I just thought it would add like extra egress, from the second floor, but that's not necessary, but. Okay, and does that door open out or in? The one?
That opens in,
Okay.
yeah,
Dicey.
well, if you open it, you couldn't fall out.
That's what I mean,
you
with the
know.
board there, if it open
Exactly.
out, it wouldn't help with the
No,
opening in, so, okay, thank you.
Mr. Whitehead?
Yes. Mr. Benton, I'm a licensed surveyor in Delaware since '69, so I have some particular questions here. Your neighbor next door, I see he put a deck on.
Yes.
Is that encroaching? Would that be? I mean, what was that illegally encroaching?
I guess if we look at the photos,
That's what I'm looking at.
yeah,
Does it go beyond? It looks like it goes beyond. Do the two homes line up?
I guess photo 3 gives you the best view of it. If you take a look at photo 3.
Here's what he's looking at.
Okay, that's what you have in front of you?
Right.
Yeah, so it looks, eyeballing it, not.
So that was,
Eyeballing it, it looks like the rear of our properties are at about the same place and his deck is coming out.
well, how about all these other decks that are going up? And I'll ask the building inspector, are they legal?
The decks that are being permitted right now are to comply with the zoning code as well. So
That's what I mean. How about the one next door?
I couldn't tell you that, not to. I thought about it before.
Well, I'm asking, in other words, it wouldn't be fair to him if decks are apparently, Mr. Penza, he did a great presentation,
Thank you.
but,
Occasionally decks just appear.
well, that's what I'm saying. How do they appear? How do they just appear? How do they just appear? And are we gonna have to go through this 100 more times? In other words, it seems to me that I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'll say later. On your side yard, what do you think about your house going right to the line? When eventually you may have to restock out, you may have to get in there and work on it. To me, the R3 zoning for the size of these homes is just totally inappropriate. Would you agree?
It seems unusual to me.
It is, as a
That
surveyor,
It's,
it's real unusual.
it seems unusual to me that the way the lots are set up is I own 10 feet of ground on one side of my house that abuts right up to my neighbor's house. But then on the other side of my house, that's where that 0.3 foot encroachment is. My neighbor owns 10 feet of ground that abuts right
What
up.
I'm
to my
saying, for the size of these homes, for the size of the homes, I can see what the builder was doing. He wanted to pack more homes in there. I mean, I've been asked to do something like that. I just would refuse. I don't think it's good for the town, nor for the homeowners, because all it's going to build a home right on the line is tough. It's tough. But I mean, I'm not surprised you have 3 tenths, 9 tenths, whatever.
Yeah.
And
Now,
So-
I think the current builders are very professional, so
Yeah.
hopefully they're gonna be careful and they're gonna use, modern equipment,
Yeah.
and not just a tape measure, which is, I think, how our house was set.
Well, even at home, you can see it here. In other words, you could basically come out 12 foot on the lower level. And that's what you're asking on the top level. You could come out 20 feet down there and build a patio, and you're okay. It seems to me what really happened was the building plans were just made to just barely fit on this lot, get everything they could. And you can look at it, and I mean, it looks, so I see your door, I see your thing here, just a look at it. Anyone with common sense would know that a 5-foot porch up there is not, I mean, that's all I
I
have.
appreciate it.
Thank you. All right.
I'm good.
Nick, other questions? Okay, all right. Let me ask the solicitor if he has any questions of the applicant.
I have no questions. Mr. Whitehead's comments are noted. And there were many things that were done wrong by the prior builder out here, and he obviously was trying to cram houses onto lots and increase its density, as all the builders do.
Yeah.
But that's kind of an irrelevant issue for us tonight. The only
Right,
issue is
right.
whether or not it's appropriate to
Right.
allow that 6-foot extension to the rear yard and the 0.9 extension into the front yard. So, but yeah, I hear you. You're just slightly not.
Thank you, Mr. Lasko. Mr. Bertram, any comments on any of this? The front, we haven't talked about the front very much, but both pieces of this application, any comments on any of this?
No, it's appropriate to, you're not gonna move the house over 9/10 of a foot from a mistake we made years ago. And Mr. Capano was caught on it, but did not resolve the issue. So for both things, the side yard and the front yard. Now, the rear yard, there was no deck proposed. You could have put a 5-foot deck up there, could have put steps out of the lower door and put a patio like other people in the neighborhood have done. But again, this is a fairly narrow lot depth wise compared to other homes in the neighborhood, and the configuration of the lots. He was just trying to fill them up for his model homes, so that you could make good.
No other comments about the application?
The application appears to be reasonable.
Rogers
I have no questions.
had some comments earlier that,
Mr. Mayor, you may want to call for public comment first and then get to Mr. Rogers.
okay, all right. We'll take time for public comments. So that, would you like to say
My
anything?
wife.
Hi, guys. It's just a little tiny deck, y'all. Like this big of a deck, y'all. I've already had a huge gazebo back there. Probably encouraged the variance, didn't even care, don't know, don't care. Like, look, it's just a tiny deck. Come on. My neighbors have a giant deck.
Just trying to make sure that the scale is appropriate and that if,
We
This was-
appreciate everything you've done, but honestly, if this doesn't get done, I'm getting a for sale sign in
I
my front
understand, I
yard.
understand. I don't think,
So we're
don't
good.
don't
We're
think-
good either way. Thank you
don't-
for your time.
think that's where it's headed. But that's
I'm
why I
pretty
asked,
sure.
that's why I asked the question about what the plans were for the other construction in the neighborhood.
They
Were
all have
were they
decks.
doing something actually that was even larger than what you're proposing? Because that would probably play to your favor, right? So what you're asking for, at least in my estimation, is quite modest. All right. Any other comments? No? No? All right. Hearing no other public comments, we want to close out the hearing, or we want to put Chris on the record?
You would take a motion to adjourn the hearing, enter into your business meeting. And at that point, you would ask Mr. Rogers for any recommendation he has based on the evidence presented.
Very good. All right. Hearing that, do I have a motion to adjourn the hearing portion of our proceedings
And enter into the business
and
meeting.
enter into the business meeting? I need a motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay.
All in
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All right. All right.
Okay,
Hearing is
we're in your
adjourned.
business
We're going to go into the business meeting. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Rogers,
Thank you.
what do you think of the neighborhood? Mr. Rogers' neighborhood?
First time I've ever heard that.
Yeah, right.
Really don't think any doubt. For the record, AECom recommends approval of the 2 variance requests. We feel that the applicant has satisfied the criteria of section 230-57C of the city zoning ordinance regarding variances, as well as the quick check factors. The salient features of the application are as follows. The front yard setback variance request is de minimis and addresses an existing situation that is not the result of the actions of the applicant. Regarding the rear yard variance request, the applicant has testified tonight and in the application that the installation of a practical and economically feasible deck is not possible without encroachment into the setback. Furthermore, the rear yard and associated setback is adjacent to private common open space comprise mostly of wetlands. Therefore, the proposed improvement will have no negative impact on said adjacent property to the rear.
Good, thank you. Any questions? Anything like that? Okay, any other comments from any of the other commissioners or any other questions about the application? My own view is that this is where we talk amongst ourselves. My own view is that I would associate myself with the recommendations from the planner and AECom. I think the size of the deck is not outside the scope of the scale of the property. It's certainly more modest than what appears to be a neighbor's deck. And the ones that are being built will be this size, maybe larger. So there's nothing here that is going to make it stand out. And then the front setback issue was clearly not of their doing. They didn't construct the home, they bought it as is. So this is an opportunity to clean up the problem that was not of their doing. Those are my views. Anyone else have other comments in our business meeting? I also do think that the applicant is entitled to, he's met the tests of the quick check case and the other considerations that are important for an application like this. So I'm going to support the application.
Also, well, for probably the same reasons, and also some of the problems with the Mr. and Mrs. Penza, it wasn't their doing, put it this way, it just was not their doing. And, you know, they were put in a situation and the same, the zoning wasn't different because that's going to be a recurring problem, trust me. All the way through there when you build on a property line. And I did work on probably the most important building on the East Coast, the nuclear plant. When that went up and believe me, you know, that a builder's not like the Savannah that went on down there, and it's a shame. I mean, it's honestly, it's partly the town's doing. They should, yeah,
Thank you,
right?
thank you.
There you go. So that's all I know.
I agree. I think aesthetically, it's gonna look nice. I think you're gonna get used
I
to
do,
doors
too.
that you were not able to use, and it's also a safety thing. Having doors that open to nowhere. And then the other issue was just, that was not your fault. And that was so
We'll have you over.
awesome.
I approve.
Let me remind the board that when you actually motion and vote, articulate your reasons for your decision, addressing the quick check steps. This is for purposes of appeal. It's not going to get appealed, but if it were to be appealed, I want you to get used to the idea of being specific about your rationale. Just state your facts as to why you think it meets the test in quick check or in our code there. They're very similar. So you talk about exceptional practical difficulty. You talk about whether or not there's any self-created hardships. You talk about whether or not the nature of the variances are minimal. You talk about whether or not the character of the neighborhood would be inconsistent or not with the grant of the variance. So these are the kinds of factual matters that you want to address when you vote. So I usually go through that little recitation, but this is the first time you're going to go through this. So this is a reminder, and you'll hear me. If I hear you vote in the future and you don't articulate reasons, I'm going to interrupt. Okay.
You learned that. I learned that the last 3 years as chair of this.
You wanna
August,
make
but
us read.
he's not a plan. No, he's not.
No,
So
you know,
One, two.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example here. Okay. Just
Going to make the motion.
yeah, make the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get that for it.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to approve the application as submitted. And I need a second.
I'll second it.
Seconds it. Okay, all in favor?
time.
Right.
All right. So, let's sound off. So Kathy, get Steve, what's your vote?
Approved.
Yes?
Okay,
I-
rationale?
It meets all the quick check requirements and. it's
No,
not-
no. Yeah, you're giving me conclusory statements. You're not stating facts.
Okay.
You understand the difference? It
A
meets
little
all the
bit,
tests. That's no facts. When you want to show to a judge on appeal that you analyzed facts and they fit into that test. You said
Okay.
you had a logical and rational deduction of the facts and applied them to the test. So there you go.
Okay.
Want me to, I'll start.
Why'd you say it? Because I'm not getting it.
So I'm good. Okay, so I support the approval of this application because there were external practical factors that made it difficult for the homeowners to enjoy their property. There was, the variances are minimal in terms of the implications that they would have on surrounding properties, including the back of the property, which is not intended for further development. That what they're asking for is consistent with other properties in the development and those that are existing and or planned. And for all those reasons, I would support, that's why I'm expressing support for this application. Everybody else has to.
Don't just say me too. Go give your own logical explanation of how you view it. Okay. Whatever you want.
Well, basically the same thing. I mean, I'm going with 1, 2, 3, and 5 at least. And
How do you apply the facts to 1, 2, 3, and 5? That's what I'm asking you to do.
I think there are special conditions and.
What are they?
Well, I just think, number one, it seems like this whole development is surrounded by woods and wetlands that will never, ever be built on.
How about the house itself was designed to have a second floor exit?
And it was designed with probably an undersized deck. They could have honestly pushed that. They tried to get the maximum square footage on the house. They could have cut back on the square footage, but they didn't. They tried to pack everything possible into this house. As far as the encroachments, I don't like the zoning that was proposed. And years ago, I did do, Cabana was a good outfit. Years ago, when Joe Father was there. And I did deal with Tom, but, which is just a little over in Jersey, a little nothing back.
Counselor, has he shared with enough?
Unless he has something more to add.
Okay, all right. All right, good enough.
I approve of the application because I think the homeowners have presented everything in a very clear and honest way. The request is minimal, the variance is minimal, and it's going to benefit the homeowner financially and aesthetically. And I don't think there'll be any negative impact on the community or on their neighbors.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I approve because the house was designed to have a second floor deck. And I think it's a reasonable sized deck. It's going to be very nice. You know, I think there's no, the encroachment onto the 25-foot is not going to hinder anybody. It's not going to bother anybody. It's not going to affect your neighbors. I think that's going to be fine. And I think it'll look great. It's something that it should have put on it when it probably built. So I agree that it's a good idea and it's going to be good. Thank you.
All right, and finally, so I will also add that appreciate the willingness to reach out to the neighbors. The sign's been in the yard for a while, so the other neighbor could have walked over, read the sign, saw this in the news journal or other places, and they could have commented if they thought they had some questions. But I appreciate the email from your other neighbor. Okay, I think we've satisfied. We voted, we approved, we stated the rate rationale, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry.
You did vote,
Yes,
Kathy.
we did.
I saw
We
them
did.
all say yes, and then I made them give their.
Right, we had to go through the rationale. That was a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All in favor?
Aye. A little bit, let's do a little trans.
Transactional
part of things.
Thank you.
Really
Really nice meeting everyone. I appreciate
you.
it.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm here before you.
I think you guys are
Sorry,
doing
so showed up so
good
casual.
shape once they go.
Yeah, I think so too. And they're doing, I shoot you